Right. All right, so everyone, since it is 8 o'clock, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Oh, 7 o'clock. I'm so sorry. Since it's 7 o'clock, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Once again, if you haven't checked in yet, our check-in link is on the board. But I'm gonna go ahead and hand it over to our 5 panelists to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Fernando Cortez-Suna. I'm a tenor and bass trombone player here at CSUN. I'm a performance and music ed major.
I'm Sebastian Marino. I am a performance major. I play the French horn. I'm the second year here. Yeah.
I'm Colin. I'm a tuba player. Performance ed major.
I'm Isai. I'm a euphonium and music education major with my third year.
I'm Jordan. I play the trumpet, all of them.
Really?
Yes, and I am a first year master's student now. Do you guys have questions, or shall we just start yapping?
Yeah.
Come on.
Start out. What are we at first?
Who would like to start?
Let's start on that end. There's a lot over here.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay. Fair enough.
We'll start with the tenor trombone. So with most usual tenor trombones, you're not gonna have these extra like set of like tubes, because it's gonna be what's called a pea shooter or a straight tenor trombone. So that'll just be the slide, then it'll just come straight up from here and then to the bell. But what the F attachment does is it changes the key of the instrument to F. And that gives you almost a chromatic instrument, except for a low B natural. But what it does is bring things that would be in sixth position to first position. And it makes a lot of the necessities of like playing a lot easier when you can alternate on your slide positions with the attachment. Are there any questions on this one?
Wait, so can you not play every note on the trombone?
Not on this one.
But
So-
on like an average trombone?
On an average trombone, you cannot, no.
Really?
It's
Crazy.
missing from E flat to pedal B natural.
Below this guy?
Yes, below the stuff.
Below the bass drum step.
Yes.
Thank you.
So when you do need that low B natural, you use a bass trombone, which has even more tubing. So you guys look at it, this is a lot heavier than this one, and what would be the third option, which would be the lightest. So you're gonna have all of your weight over here, and you're gonna have two attachments here, the F attachment that's seen on this one, and also a G flat. And when combined, it becomes a D attachment. So when you press this one, it changes the instrument to F, to G flat, then to D, and you'll find your respective positions and partials within it. So the bass trombone is a lot easier to play your lower notes, of course, and it's going to project and have a lot more of a cutting sound than what would be the tuba, as it's a much more rounder sound. And it plays essentially in the same range of the tuba, but not as low as a tuba can go. Are there any questions about these two?
So like if you can't reach, like, I don't know how to ask this. If there's a piece and you have to play low notes, do you have to switch mid-piece? Or does the bass bone cover like even the high notes too? Like how does
So-
that work?
When or like composing or arranging for these two instruments, it comes with certain like expectations that you're not gonna usually write like tenor trombone so low, because that's when you would have them go onto the bass, and you would not have the bass trombone go so high because it loses its tone quality when it's in that upper register, while this it has a better tone quality.
That's crazy. I had no idea.
But yeah, I think when thinking like middle school, high school, you'd start your middle schoolers on a straight trombone, so no F attachment. The F attachment can get introduced into high school, and I'd say Any students that already have experience with the F attachment, perhaps maybe after their freshman year of having been introduced to it, you could switch them onto bass if you needed it. But there's a learning curve to all of these. These instruments play very differently because the mouthpieces are very different as well. So these there's a difference in the shank size. So there's a large shank and there's the bass trombone mouthpiece and the cup depth and width. So with this one, you're gonna get a lot more cup width, which means that you're gonna have a lot more space to be able to play into the mouthpiece. While this is just a bit more enclosed, which means that you're able to get into that higher register and maintain that tone quality. Any other questions? Would you guys want me to demonstrate anything? Yeah.
Can you play the lowest note you can play on the bass trombone?
Yeah, sure. So that'll probably be low D. So this is like in the middle of the staff. Then under the staff. And then even more below that. And I could do the opposite as well on this one. So I believe my highest note I could hit is the B flat, but I'll play a high F just because I can't always hit it. So you have your F in the staff, above the staff, and then even higher than that. Yeah.
Just to make sure that I got correct information in learning, how much slide grease like do you use and like how much or how often do you put it on?
That's a really good question. I'm really particular about the slide. The slide to me should always be, I don't know, this is how it's always been described to me, but I don't know how effective it is, like glass. It needs to be as smooth as physically possible so that you can move it in every part of the slide without feeling even a bit of resistance on it. So what I use is these two. So I use a Yamaha slide lubricant. It costs like $7 or so on Amazon. This one's really good. There's another brand that I would also recommend, Slido Mix. They also make some really good stuff. And then every one of your trombone students needs to have a water spray, because this combined with this solution will make the slide as like lubricated as possible. And I do it about, I want to say maybe once a week. And the moment I feel resistance is when I clean down the whole slide. So I'll spray water on it throughout, and then I'll get like a napkin or something and like go down through the two parts of the inner slide. So I'll take it out, and then with the napkin I'll go down and then put the outer slide back in. And then with the Yamaha, I'll do about 2 drops. I could demonstrate. So it's always good to shake these as well before you're using them. So you shake it a little bit, then I'll put about a drop like this. And then make sure that it runs down as much as possible. And then after that, so you're gonna go into a bit of a fit of just trying to spread it throughout the entire slide, especially the very end over here, because that's where you're gonna get the most resistance in the beginning. And then after that, go with your water spray. Start at the end, 1 spray, 1 at the top. And then you're gonna spread that as well and let those 2 mixtures combine. Any other questions for 2 trombones? And this is interchangeable with tenor or bass or the straight trombone.
Horn.
All good? Go for it.
Alright, so this is the French horn, there's a lot of tubing as you can see. And I think the first thing I'll talk about is just like emptying water, which it gets really annoying and excessive. So, I'm gonna take this off for now. So mostly this is the lead pipe, and this is mostly where like most of the water will come out from. You'll just take it out like so, and yeah, it'll drop there. And it's a whole process, at least from what Annie told me, with the horn professor, and then you take it out down here, and I'm not gonna do the whole process, but you take it out right here, and then to clear all the valves, you're gonna wanna hold, so there's 4 keys on the horn, there's a thumb key right here, and then you wanna hold number 3, and you're just gonna wanna shake this and also just like press the first 2, and then you're just gonna wanna empty these out, make sure you hold each one while you take it out. I think that just applies to every brass playing or brass instrument. And then I should say these top 3 right here, this is the F side, this is without holding the trigger. And then the B flat side is by holding down the trigger, and it's these 3 back here, which are just smaller tubings than the one in front. And so while you hold the 2, 3, you'll just want to take this one out as well. And then yeah, a good amount of water just comes out. And then make sure you hold the correct fingering for each tube so that I'm not too sure why we do this. It's just
Prevent the suction.
suction,
Yeah.
So and then
Vacuum.
and then the last step is just turning it around like just while you're driving a car, I guess. And it should just be fully cleared, just like that. So the French horn has, I think, the widest range, natural range of any of the brass instruments. It can go as high as a trumpet and as low as a tuba, and it can hit that range chromatically as well. So you don't have to skip a note to go down to the pedals. And I believe the lowest note naturally is a concert G flat down, I think 2 below middle C. So I don't know what note that is for the tuba, but and then it can go as high as a concert F, which is 2 above middle C. So there's just like five octaves you can technically hit, and yeah. So in the professional world, sometimes there are people that specialize in low horn, and then some that take it to the middle octave to the high octave. And you want to learn, well, beginning it's just going to stay in the middle octave. Some teachers, I believe, will take it down the octave below just because there's a lot of pressure when it comes to the French horn, just like inner pressure and just like air pressure in general, because it's a lot of tubing. And so yeah, some people will take it down the octave, and then eventually when the students are ready, they'll just take it back up the octave, back to the natural octave, which hits the same octave as like an alto sax. And then you will only really need to hit lower octaves and more challenging music, more how do I say it's like, yeah, just like in higher levels of music. But let's see. So this instrument is French horns are typically rotor instruments, which means that it has like these strings attached with like these like little sticks, and basically it like sort of rotates in, and it's different to like a brass instrument like the trumpet and the tuba, in the case that you can just press it down and like valves inside would just go down. But with the French horn, when you press it down, it like just like rotates. Just this thing rotates, and then something inside I think just rotates, and then you hit various notes. And so the way you would oil this too, you would use something called a rotor oil. You can also use valve oil. It works those 2 types of oil. Yeah, oh, thank you. So yeah, it'll look like this, just like a little long stick, and basically all you just want to do is just like sort of apply it where the rotors move. So for example, the second one right here, I don't know if you can see it, but like see the rotation right there. You just want to apply it where it sort of moves, and you don't have to put that much, just like a little bit. Yeah, thank you. And then yeah, that's how you oil the French horn. And um let's see. And then to hold it, so that's the left hand right here. And then with this hand in the bell, it's just sort of like this simple like sort of English hello pose. You just kind of put it in there and then you just kind of like you just kind of yeah, you just kind of gently place it in there. You don't have to just go all the way in. Make sure it's not too out too. Sort of just comfortably being able to lift it. And most of the weight will come from the bell when you hold it. And you shouldn't feel that much weight on your left hand. And yeah. The position of your hand also affects the intonation of the horn. So if I put it too deep, it will go flat, I believe, and then bringing it out will make it sharp. And yeah, and yeah. Any questions so far? Yeah.
What happens if the strings break?
If the strings break, you can. It'll just go back to like this natural position, and you can eventually just replace them at like a repair shop, or you can replace them yourself. Um, nothing will happen. Nothing bad will happen. It'll just you can just take off the string and then just put a new one, and it'll be able to rotate again.
Is that something that you like would recommend you take in? Like if a kid breaks a string, you just take the horn in.
Yeah, you can if you don't know how to do it. If you don't know how to replace a string, which I don't know, but I haven't had a string break before, then yeah, you can bring it in, and but I've never really seen a case where these break. All they do is like just like get loose and then they just like fall off, but they shouldn't break. They'll just like yeah, they'll just get loose and then you'll just have to retighten the strings.
Until Johnny with period 2 gets some
Yes.
scissors.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
I don't know how accurate this is, but I've always heard people say that it's the hardest brass instrument to learn. What is that?
I think that is due to the overtone series. So the overtone series on a brass instrument is just like the notes you can play on. For me, it's just like the notes you can play just like on zero fingering, just like yeah, in a partial. The partials of just like pressing absolutely nothing. So the French horn has more notes in its overtone series in the middle, with like trumpet, for example. I think it naturally just on zero it goes from C to G and then C again, and then eventually it goes to E, G, and then eventually it's just like eventually zero just becomes more notes as it goes up. On the French horn, in the middle register, there will be middle C, and then it'll go to E, and then G, and then B flat, C, D, E, and it eventually just has and it eventually just gets smaller. Each note just becomes closer. There we go. Yeah, closer in between. And it's just like harder to hit the nose per se, and I think it just at a beginning level, I think it'll just require a little more air than usual, or just like be able to push out a lot more air, just because there's like a lot of tubing that has to go through. Yeah, and then this instrument just also tends to like crack a lot more because of the overtone series, just like it switches frequencies, and it switches frequencies and the notes like in the middle of you playing if you don't have like a steady air or if you don't I guess just like hit the note. I don't know how to explain that. But eventually I think as soon as you just figure out your air, this instrument just doesn't become that bad. And it's just like sort of a mental game eventually.
So what about embouchure?
Embouchure?
Because I've heard that on French horn the partials are just really a killer in comparison to a lot of the other brass instruments.
Yeah. So from what I've been learning, just like French horn embouchure can also just apply to other brass instruments, and I think other brass instruments can apply to French horn. So it's specifically just like high brass instruments better than low instruments. With the French horn, it has the smallest mouthpiece out of the brass instruments. It is just tiny compared to like trumpet over there, and then the higher or the low brass stuff is just
They can fit into the mouthpiece.
yeah. And so eventually you will see some French horn players just like have it sort of below or like on the bottom lip compared to the other instruments that would just have it like fully on the lip or fully around the lips. So but at a beginner level, there's some bad habits that can happen with the embouchure. What I had when I started out, I would put the mouthpiece sort of under my lip and then under my top lip, which is pretty bad because with French horn embouchure, you want to have a ratio of like 60 on the top, 40 on the bottom, and then sometimes if you just don't have like this if you're not familiar with French horn embouchure, it can just lead to a bunch of bad habits. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
How do you go about like upkeep it just water? Like oh sorry. This like how do you upkeep it, for example? Like take care of it, like
Take care of it?
yeah, like long term. Besides like this treating the water out. Like the students can like let's say like a yearly checkup, but like how would that go about?
I see. I mean, eventually you can just. I think this applies to all brass instruments. You like give it a bath from time to time.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know how frequent you guys do it. I do it like.
I do it when I have a tub that my children can fit in,
Yeah.
Which is never.
which is almost never.
Yeah. I'll typically do it like 3 times a year or like 2. Yeah. I don't know. Whenever I see this thing,
I do all 6 of mine once a month.
once a month.
Once a month.
Really?
Yeah,
I mean, I clean my slides probably once a month. Mostly, like clean my slides and valves once a month, like snake my horn.
in my youth, I have to clean it as much as I can because the valves just get super gunky super quick. But that might just be this one.
Yo, quick disclaimer for those of you who are not wind players, don't do this with a woodwind instrument.
Yeah.
Oh, please do not give your woodwind instruments.
On that topic, like specifically with like trumpet, and you guys probably have stuff like this too. In the valves, you don't want to get the felts wet
Yeah.
on this. So on the top, a lot of them will have that, and then if you open it, sometimes they'll have. Let's see, where is it? Up in here, if you guys can see that, there's like a little felt here, and then you don't really want to get the springs in here wet either. So if you have a student that like really knows what they're doing, they can like disassemble it and like scrub them individually. Or what I usually tell my kids is you just dump the bottom bit in and scrub that out. But you don't want to get these felt specifically wet because if they get wet and then they dry a different thickness, that is how it aligns the valves.
Mhm.
So it'll misalign it and then your notes will come out.
That doesn't apply to the trombone. You could just completely submerge the trombone.
Yeah. Anything else,
Goes to-
fair games. Soak it.
Lukewarm water. Yes.
Yeah.
Lukewarm water, not hot.
I was gonna say, what does the bath consist of? Like, are we talking like types of soap? Like.
I generally use dish soap.
I use
Like,
like John, like good for like oil removal,
Yeah.
like with like when it
Yeah,
builds
just
up.
any mild dish soap.
unscented might be cool, but like it's not that serious.
Your best bet is like standard dog picture.
Yeah, don't waste your money on the fancy like brass instruments so that like the companies make.
It's a waste of time. Yeah, with the duck, it's all the way down. Yeah, with the duck, that's like the rest of the
Musicians just left it.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's just
Um,
how it is.
so this is the tuba.
Crazy.
It is the biggest instrument of the brass family. So mainly your students are going to be playing on B flat horns, on B flat tubas, which will have 4 valves. For a general high school setting, and 3 valves for like a middle school and beginner high schooler. For middle school, I would suggest you put your students on a 3/4 horn or a 4/4 3 valve tuba. In high school, if you have the availability to do it, start putting them on 4 valves. This instrument is probably, I would say, the easiest brass instrument to get a hang of once you know what you're doing. And the only reason why I say that is because most tuba players don't start on tuba. I started on trumpet. I know most of the tuba studio here started on trumpet. There were a couple of us who started on trombone or on euphonium. And the only reason why it's hard at first is because of the embouchure. The embouchure is literally just that's all it is when I play my horn. So compared to these fine people over here, where their embouchure is more like concise and like tighter corners, only like a certain amount is in the mouthpiece. Our mouthpiece covers practically our entire, like literally 75% of our mouth. There are 3 general keys of tubas that are in the world in the United States. That's B flat, C, and F. You generally won't have to worry about the C or the F variation unless one of your more advanced students in high school decide to get their own horn. So B flat is going to be your way to go. When you have the 4th valve, that valve, I believe, changes it to the key of F, just like the trombone trigger does. And that basically on a B flat horn, it can get you below, all the way down to a concert C. Just playing with valves before you get into pedals, it will not get you to a B natural. When you get to like C tuba, then it'll start getting you down to like having B natural. The range of the tuba, I can play down to an F0 all the way up to a E flat 5. But please only choose music that for your students that goes all the way up to an F3. And sometimes in the range, probably maybe a G3. So that would be like the top of the bass clef staff, all the way down to, I would say your safest bet is the F below the staff or ledger light below the staff. Piston valves, we haven't seen those yet. These things, like Jordan showed, these ones don't have springs attached to the valves. I need to oil these. The springs are inside of the valves, so.
That's how fluval ones work too, by the way.
Yeah.
Like all of these, when you're in the valves, these are full of. The fluval horn is technically a baby tuba. It is not a part of the trumpet.
Invented by all sax.
We don't say that in the brass book. That's like a sin to mention that in anything.
Also wrong fluval horn.
That too.
Yeah.
Sin.
He got the information from.
In terms of how often I oil my valves, Dr. Cooper tells all of his students to oil their valves every single day. Well, he tells his tuba students that.
Nobody does that.
I can guarantee you no one does that. I don't oil my valves every day. I would say I oil my valves probably 2 times a week. And I also have the heaviest valves in the brass family too. And a part of that is I use Yamaha synthetic valve oil. They will probably argue against that. I don't know if they do. Do you?
No.
What do you use Yamaha synthetic?
Yeah.
I thought you use Blue Juice.
I used to, I changed my.
And you
ways.
saw the light.
Stay away from.
Yes, please stay away from
Bridges
this.
is not a.
So Yamaha synthetic, it has actually 4 variations. There's a light synthetic, the normal synthetic, the heavy synthetic, and the vintage synthetic. With your tuba players, stay away from the vintage. Actually, with brass in general, stay away from the vintage.
Unless you have a vintage one.
Unless you have a vintage horn, that is literally only for a vintage horn.
Yeah, I use vintage on my other B flat. I have a bench.
With your school tubas, I would suggest you use light or normal, but try and stick with light with student horns. Normal when you start to get into the more professional models, if you have enough money to buy professional B flats. Oh, sorry, regular, not normal.
If you're wanting the specific terminology,
It says regular.
It says regular is this shaded blue. The bottles
It's
are different. shades.
about $12, $13 on Amazon. Depends on the
I
set.
bought this like 10 years ago.
$7.
Is yours light?
No.
Yours regular?
Yeah.
How long is your bottle like? Oh no, it is $7. Sorry, I got like 20 of them.
For 13?
Yeah,
Impressive.
I got 2 bottles.
Somewhere. Okay, that's not.
Are there any questions in regards to the tuba? Yes, ma'am.
So with the fourth valve, are the fingerings otherwise the same except to like does it
So-
alter the fingerings at all?
Yes, so the biggest thing with that you will ever realize when your tuba players are playing fourth valve on a B flat horn is that a B natural or a C flat is you can either play 1, 2, or 3, or you can play it 2 and 4. So basically your fourth valve is a replacement for 1 and 3. So like concert F, which is open on a B flat, can be played fourth valve. I would suggest that if you have students who are playing a horn with 4 valves, you have them utilize that fourth valve as much as possible because it'll just be a lot better with tuning. Because playing 1, 2, and 3 and going through all of the tubing is going to be super sharp. And then if you're able to control that tuning with the fourth valve, it'll be much easier. Any other questions?
So, okay, I've never held a tuba in my life,
Mhm.
but I'm assuming they're heavy.
Yes.
So if you have like a little student, they're tiny, what
Yeah.
are you supposed to do?
Depends on the level of schooling. If you have a middle schooler who's tiny, give them a 3/4 horn, which is just a little bit bigger than euphonium. If you have a little high schooler, you don't really have a choice but to give them a 4/4 horn because they'll probably grow, and also the way I go about it pedagogically with high school students is I'm starting to try and get them to the industry standard of size of horn. So if you have someone who's like pretty little, then I would say try and get them on a 4/4. But if they don't, not all high schools have a 3/4. That's why I'm saying that.
Or you could just get a tube.
Or you can just get them to a stand, which is like $100-something.
Is that like the thing that
Tell them to play
is
back.
like this?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a little.
It's something I don't have one personally, but basically it's like a tripod that has a little platform that you rest this part of the horn on. And it just goes in between your legs and then you can just have it there. Oh, just to let you all know, I have to preface this. Please do not ever pick up a tuba like this. Please do not pick up a tuba like that. I have seen that before. And it was horrifying. And I was afraid that the person who was carrying the tuba like that was going to drop it. The best way to pick up a tuba is by this right here. This is the bottom piping before you get to the bell. To pick it up like that. Pick it up with 2 hands, not with 1. Playing, it'll just run under. You have a couple different options. You can rest it in between your legs like this. You can rest it on one leg if you're a little shorter, you can rest it on your chair. I don't like to rest it on my chair. I just rest it on my lap, which causes it to slide off during concerts. Or onto a stand, if you can afford a tuba stand. But yeah. Any other questions?
Actually, I have a question.
So the,
What valves are you tuning with the left hand while you're holding it?
oh, okay, yeah. So this is kind of like now we're starting to delve into the like more professional way of playing tuba. Where pulling slides is more standard. As you can see, I don't have to push down my valves. My valves have this little hole in it that actually
Counteracts.
counteracts the pressure, the vacuum pressure that's in the horn, so I can pull my slides without any worry about a vacuum pull. So this slide here, when I pull it, I'm tuning my first valve. This slide is my third, this slide is my fourth valve. I mainly only pull my first valve because that's really the only one I need to, because these ones are usually preset to pretty good tuning. With a D flat, which is for my horn is 2 and 4. This is a C tuba and a B flat tuba. I pull out my fourth valve because that's generally sharp. But yeah, I would say with your students, do not worry about pulling slides at all. One, your tubas won't have the capability to do that because it won't have that pressure equilibrium pull. And two, it's just a lot more stuff they need to worry about than trying to make sound on this one. So,
Are the slides just for like tuning or for intonation or something?
yeah, they're really just for intonation,
Okay.
and for picking up a bunch of water. Let's see if I have. If you thought okay, this was disgusting, let's see if my third drop has any in it. No, because I emptied my nice slides.
Stuff came out.
No, I know a little came out, but yeah, I would say don't let your students be afraid of emptying their slides on a tuba, but also be cautious that there will be a puddle on your floor when they do.
Towel?
Yeah, have them use a towel, especially if your band room's floor is carpet. I would say for any brass instrument, actually use a towel if the floor is carpet.
That shit's nasty.
Yeah, it'll get pretty musty in that room within a couple of years if they just empty them.
Years, like the first year. Or like 3 years.
In the interest of time, let's move on to euphonium.
This is a euphonium, just looks like a base, like just tiny tuba, about half of the size. Typically starting kids on euphonium, I'd say is somewhat easier than a tuba. Uses the same mouthpiece as a trombone, and is in the key of C. So if you're starting them on bass clef, it's pretty easy. Getting sounds out of it is also pretty easy. It's not a wide octave, I think it's only like 3 or 4 depending on your horn. This is a compensating euphonium. So typically when you're starting kids on either euphonium or baritones, they're only going to have 3 valves. And then typically for professional or high school level, they're going to have a 4th valve, which is just going to give them an extension to go lower into the lower octave. For this specific horn, it's compensating, so it has extra tubing going throughout, connecting to the 4th valve to give it a deeper and richer tone for the instrument. And key of thumb, or you know what I mean. The 4th valve changes the key into C. So the euphonium's in the key of B flat, and taking this down puts it in C. Sort of like the French horn. This is just an extension to go super low. I think the lowest note that we can play on this would be a B flat in the bottom of the bass clef for tubas. So, or in the middle of the staff. So it's pretty low. And then it goes into mid to low range of the French horn. Holding it really depends on the person that you're playing with. So if they have a shorter kind of body, they can just rest it on their their legs or their arms. But typically if like you have like a longer torso, like me, it's just you have to hold it and it's about like 15 pounds in one arm, depending on the shape of the horn. That's basically it for the euphonium. Any questions? Yeah.
Is there a difference between a euphonium and a baritone?
Yeah, so the euphonium has a deeper and richer sound compared to the baritone, which is more, it's skinnier. So it's like, it looks just like, really, just picture the flugelhorn, just like in this size.
Yeah.
So it's kind of wonky, and typically baritones have the bell facing forward instead of this one facing up. And usually baritones are used for like marching or like just like outdoor events. And they're in the same key, but baritones usually only have 3 valves, which is why they're typically in middle school or like beginner, like high school levels.
It's also a matter of cylindrical versus conical.
Mhm.
So like trumpet versus cornet. Trumpet is a cylindrical instrument. You see how it goes in the mouthpiece and the tubing stays the same size the whole time and still until it flares out at the bell. Meanwhile, a cornet and even like flugelhorn, you see how it, like the tubing gradually gets a bit bigger when you stick it the mouthpiece in. So euphoniums are conical, baritones are cylindrical.
Yes. As you can see from here, it's like as soon as you get into like out of the valves, it I don't know where the valve, it's the valve in the back, after the 4th valve, it just instantly gets larger until you get to the outer portion. Any questions? Okay, Kurt.
Okay. Why don't we start with just all of these horns in general? Because I've gotten that question a lot recently, actually. So let's talk middle school band. When you're first starting out with a student, you're gonna give them a B flat trumpet. That's this guy right here. This is what, if you come and see me in ensembles, I play this in wind ensemble for the most part, like A band stuff, studio ensemble. This is the basic trumpet you're gonna give any student. They're all gonna start on this. This is what they need to know. Once you get into high school, I would say you can give a student a flugelhorn in jazz band, or in the very rare occasion it's in like wind band music. If you have like an average to above average trumpet section, you can start introducing cornets with them. I was in a high school band that did that because a lot of wind band music is written where the parts are split between trumpet and cornet. Again, it's a matter of cylindrical versus conical instruments. These are a lot more free blowing. Cylindrical instruments have a lot more resistance when you play them. If you have like a really good like advanced high school trumpet player, maybe like junior, senior year, go ahead, give them a C trumpet. This is what they're gonna need if they're like wanting to go and like major in trumpet in college or something. This is like for orchestral playing if they want to audition for orchestras and stuff. E flat trumpet and piccolo trumpet, don't give those to your students unless you have literal trumpet Jesus in your band. Like this is like college and like professionals and above. Yeah, so that's as far as horns go. Mouthpieces. Let's see. Trumpets all have trumpet shank mouthpieces. Cornets have a different shank. Flugelhorns have a different shank. And then, in case you're curious, piccolo trumpets, they have different pipes, so you can play with either a trumpet or a cornet shank on those. The 4th valve on that works the same as the others. So basically, brass instruments are a lot of math. So we all understand the basic concept of the longer the tube, the lower the pitch. If students are confused by that when I start yapping about it, usually what I'll say is, okay, well, how much tubing does a trumpet have versus a tuba? And which of these plays higher notes? And obviously they're like, oh, well, tuba has more tubing. It plays lower notes, so that kind of helps them get that. How these instruments work is you press down a valve and it redirects the air through the extra tubing, which makes the pitch go lower. Longer tube, lower pitch. Trombones have it easy. You just literally lengthen your tube to get the pitch to come down. But that's also how the harmonic series and like all like and partials and junk, how that all works is you have a pattern in which the figurines go, and you pick a partial and the pattern goes down, and that's how it goes. So It's the same pattern over. So middle valve is a half step, first valve is a whole step, and then third valve is a step and a half. Which is why you can use third valve as an alternate for 1 and 2. What else? What else is important? Oh, embouchure. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I was told. Of the brass instruments, trumpet is the only one that does not shift embouchure when you change registers. Like you guys will like shift stuff in your face when you go like higher or lower. Don't do that with trumpet. You want as minimal motion as possible. Okay, there's obviously going to be a teeny bit with like you're changing registers and stuff. But a good rule of thumb is wherever their embouchure is set for G in the staff, so that's this note. Wherever it's set for that, they should be able to play more or less their entire range without shifting their face. And that includes the pedal register. Funnily enough.
Sorry, question. So when you say shifting, like just like anything in the face, or like can you move your jaw down to make this?
No, you don't want to move your jaw.
You don't move your jaw.
No. You don't want me to shift your jaw down. So this was an issue I personally was having in my playing, was I was shifting my jaw to get into the pedal register. Oh. That because it should be the pedal register should be an extension of the whole range of the instrument. Yes. What is a pedal register? There are notes that technically don't exist on the instrument, but they do. So
That's a very good way of explaining it. That's the best way of explaining it.
So in terms of B flat trumpet, this is what you're gonna be working with your kids. On a B flat trumpet, the lowest note you have is the F sharp that's right below the staff. So if this is middle C, that's your lowest actual note. And then you get into notes that aren't notes, but you can play them anyways. So it's getting further down into what's the word? Harmonic series. You're getting down to the base of the harmonic series. Is it just like the further down you go, like the tone isn't as good? Is that like
Kind of. I mean, if you're like really good at it, it should sound good. But so okay. So here's the F sharp. That's your lowest possible note. The next one is F, which doesn't exist, but it does exist. So you hear it like it like kind of sounds icky and not like a real note. That's because it's not a real note, but it's still there, and it's important that you teach your kids to play these because I'm assuming it works the same way for you guys. Strong pedal registers and just stronger lower register in general is the key to getting your kids to play really high. It teaches you the proper fundamentals of playing so that like, you know, you compress the air more and all the fancy blowing stuff that you're gonna need to tell your kids, those are the fundamentals they need to know to get really up there. Any questions? Yes, why?
So this is something that I saw my brother's method book when he was learning trumpet, and I'm wondering if it's normal or if he just got a really weird method book.
Okay.
They like gave him the fingering for like the first note and said like play it. If it sounds like this note, go to this page, and if it sounds like this note, go to this page, and basically just I guess whatever partial was natural for them, you learn that first. And I guess specifically a band setting and also solo setting, like, is that normal? And then in a band setting, should you like just try to coax beginning players into like the partial that matches what the rest of the band is doing? Or?
You know, I've never seen that before, but that's actually kind of smart. I like what out of curiosity, what
I
book is
have
that?
no idea. This was like 12 years ago.
Yeah, so
12 years
once
ago.
kids are like first starting trumpet, I'd say it's pretty split 50-50 with what partial is going to be natural for them. It's between G and the staff and then middle C below that. Most band method books, they want your kids to start on a B flat, concert B flat, so trumpet C, oh yeah, one step above concert pitch, by the way. So I'm going to talk in trumpet pitch because that's where I live my life. So band books, they'll start your kids on a C because that aligns better with where the other instruments start out in terms of them first starting. And obviously if you're in
a group setting, you're wanting all the kids to be playing the same notes. In specifically like trumpet beginner books, like you're taking private lessons, I found a lot of them start kids on G. Again, I'd say it's about 50-50 where kids naturally like their facials want to start them out. When I'm teaching private lessons with kids, I'll like meet them where they're at and just kind of start from there. Like if they're starting with a G, I'll then teach them the fingerings and try to walk them down to C, or vice versa. If they're C, I then try to walk them up to G, because those are the first 5 really important notes that they need to learn. If you're in like group band setting, just do your best to get them to play in the particle you need them to in order for them to match the rest of the band. Answer your question. Yeah, a lot of words.
Yes, thank you.
Cool. Other questions? Yeah.
When I was learning trumpet and like brass methods, I was having like a lot of trouble, like even buzzing like on the mouthpiece.
Aha!
Is there like any like really good solution?
This is gonna spark debate.
Oh my god, y'all are gonna be so confused. Don't buzz into your mouthpieces. Wrong. Bad. Don't do that. Shall we show them why? So usually what beginner band directors say, they mean well, a lot of them aren't brass players. So they're just trying to get their kids to make a sound as quickly as possible. So they'll say, buzz into your mouthpiece, which does produce sound. So it's called a free buzz without the mouthpiece. You hear how it's kind of like grainy sounding? If you put that into a trumpet. That's what beginners sound like, right? That's why, because you're telling them to buzz into their mouthpiece. You just want them to blow into it. Sounds a lot clearer, right? Magic. The way brass instruments make sound. So sound comes from vibrations. What's so weird? The rest of the right, you blow across the reed, it vibrates, it makes the sound for you. Trumpets don't have reeds. We have lips. Reeds do all the work for them. We have to do it all with our faces. The way you create sound, you got here. You got 2 lips. Genuinely important though. Pay attention, please. I'm begging. It's gonna save you and your students so much like struggle in the future. You create sound vibrations. So these are your 2 lips, right? Your lower lip stays stationary. You blow air out of your mouth. That's what vibrates your upper lip. So that's why you want to make sure with mouthpiece placement they have enough of their upper lip in the mouthpiece, because that's what's creating the sound. That's what's vibrating.
I will
So
say.
for trumpets, in an
I'll say that now.
ideal world, you want 50-50 of your lips, like you said 60-40 for French horn.
Yeah.
Trumpet is 50-50 and then as close to the middle as possible. That's gonna change based on like, muscles, dental structure, all that stuff. Like I personally play a little bit off to the side. Like, it's not quite in the center, but it's pretty centered up and down. That's the one that's really important. This one is slightly less important. Answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Colin, what's up?
So I will say that, and this is a massive debate amongst brass players, whether or not buzzing on the mouthpiece is beneficial to the instrument or not, or beneficial to your playing or not. Some will say it is, and I understand why they say it is. I personally think it's dependent on the instrument, because I know Eric likes you guys to do buzzing on the mouthpiece, not free buzzing.
Now that he's had me, after you're done now, that he's had me do it, my opinion has changed. We'll get into that.
So there is a very fundamental difference between buzzing your lips and buzzing on the mouthpiece. And the way that Jordan explained it is how you want to buzz on the mouthpiece. Buzzing with your lips is just like it's not how any of us play our instruments.
Yeah.
But the debate is whether or not you want, as a fundamental player, to buzz on the mouthpiece to get a better sound in your instrument. I can guarantee you right now, if you buzz on a tuba mouthpiece, it will not change your sound.
Yeah.
And this is and I've talked to so many people about this. The only reason why I do buzzing on the mouthpiece is either to just get a fundamental, just start getting blood in my lips, or if it's just to get a fundamental intonation idea with my hearing.
I have gaps.
Oh!
This one.
You have is that the Bob Reeves one?
No, it's a Pickett one.
Oh.
So I actually just recently have started doing mouthpiece buzzing as part of my practicing and stuff. I have to agree with you, Colin. I don't think it affects your sound in any meaningful, positive way. I don't think it's really gonna harm you, but it's way overhyped. However, it does have uses. So my big issue with my plan that I'm working out this semester that your students may have at a younger age that you should try to fix before they're a master's student. Thanks. Anyways, I found that my air when I was playing was hitting my chin instead of going straight out the way it is supposed to. So we have here, this is called a mouthpiece visualizer. It's not an actual mouthpiece, but we see it's got a hole in there. These are really useful. They're also pretty cheap. I personally would get a metal one because they're easier to sanitize. You're a bunch of kids. But this will allow you to see what's going on in their face. This will also allow you to feel what direction their air is going when they're playing. Mouthpiece buzzing helps you put your air in the correct direction. So I would say if your students are specifically having that as an issue, I would maybe have them do a little bit of it. The Stamp book has some good mouthpiece buzzing for trumpets, but I wouldn't make them do mouthpiece buzzing as like a fix your tone type thing, because that's usually a fundamental you're buzzing instead of flowing issue.
I will say with pressure, it is a good thing to have, like, to be able to practice with the mouthpiece itself. At least I had like one lesson where if you're not using enough air, you visualize the air literally, and like my professor, he just had a paper like right in front of my mouthpiece, and then like you just blow, like if you're just gonna play, like for me, it's just regular open valves, it's a B flat, so it's just getting the air straight through it, and you're literally seeing like how fast the air is going and how the air is gonna be traveling through your, like the mouthpiece itself, and like changing the partials with air pressure. So it's
I wanna add on to pedal notes. So with the French horn, there is like a pedal register, but it just naturally they're just natural, so they don't sound like icky and airy. So this is the but so this is an F sharp below the staff. While you go down, it'll still have like that same tone. You can still have that same tone. So but yeah, so they're all considered to be just natural notes on the horn. It's just called the pedal register when you go down. And eventually when you do go down to the pedal notes, you will have to switch between the F side and the B flat side, which by the way, starting from a concert G below the staff all the way just to like a high C, you can play any note on each side, on F side or B flat side. Sometimes you would have to switch due to tuning purposes. So at a concert C or at a concert D flat, you would start then using the B flat side just for intonation purposes and just going up. And you can switch them in like the middle register. Say if it's just out of tune, you can just try a different fingering on a different side, and it may solve some tuning issues as well. But yeah, just to touch on the pedal notes, natural.
There is one thing just to quickly add that I completely forgot, stepping away from pedals, valves, and all that. Euphonium is a great instrument to transition kids to different instruments, because I think it's the only instrument like written like on scores and like different like sets of paper or like sheet music. It's the only instrument that has both bass clef and treble clef. I think for treble clef, euphonium when it's written is the same fingerings for trumpet, and then bass clef is regular fingerings for a B flat tuba. So that's
the progression I did when I was going down to tuba. I started on trumpet, and then I went to treble clef I was playing baritone actually, but treble clef, euphonium, baritone. And then I didn't actually switch over to bass clef. That's kind of the progress. That's usually what you want to if you're trying to get a student to play either euphonium or tuba. You want to get them in that bass clef when they're on your euphonium, because I'm telling you, I spent an entire summer trying to learn bass clef, and it was a pain in my butt. But yeah, that if you're trying to get your kids to switch to euphonium from trumpet or to euphonium from tuba or to wherever you want. I mean, it gave me my opportunity to be able to play trombone. French horn, I'm sorry, that's like kind of like the biggest outlier in the brass family in terms of any transition point.
Yeah.
But that's literally just because of the key.
Yeah, it's 8 o'clock, so, yes.
Mouthpieces. When you give a kid a trumpet, it comes with a 7C mouthpiece. That's a good starting point. Don't just switch them to a 3C because they've been playing a couple years and you think that's more advanced. It's just a bigger rim. If their face needs it, go ahead, but like don't make that mistake. Like, oh, it's more advanced. No, it's not. That's it.
All right, but so everybody say thank you to our 5 lovely brass students for taking their time. There will be an email on Monday. Next week we are not meeting on Thursday because it's the Northern Singers and Wind Ensemble concert. So we'll be back the week after. But anyway, thank you all for coming on, and we will see you all not next week.